Hi there, welcome back. So today we're looking at Novus Mallum First Encounters by Enviro Games. So this is up for pre-order now, and it is a game by Enviro Games. So they are an environmentally friendly games company, kind of interested in looking at sustainable and environmentally friendly ways to provide games for the tabletop. I was interested in having a look at this, honestly, because in my work outside of gaming and outside of the YouTube channel and that kind of thing, I do quite a lot of environmentally friendly focused work, especially to do with sustainability as well. And this kind of thing does kind of speak to some of the stuff that I look after in my business life and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very, very happy to take a look at this. So Novus Mallum, A New Evil. It's the first offering from Enviro Games, a brand new environmentally focused tabletop gaming company. The game will develop against the backdrop of the receding Great Shroud, a previously impenetrable barrier which has sealed the fallen kingdom in shadow for over 3 millennia. Okay, so what we get in here is we get a rulebook and unit cards, 13 multi-part gnome miniatures, 13 multi-part dwarf miniatures, 21 tokens. Okay, so when I open this, if you're used to kind of models on sprues and that kind of thing, this will be unfamiliar to you. So this is how the game actually comes. This is not a prototype or anything like that. This is how the game will be received. So basically, all of the models have had the pieces removed from the sprue and put into these envelopes. So DH2, in fact, if I get these out, you can have another look at the back of the box again. So, for example, DH2, that will basically mean that it is DH Dwarf Hammerers. So it's number 2 of the Dwarf Hammerers, and kind of all these different things. So just to go through them, the gnome miniatures are the Alto Mage Zizka, 6 gnome skirmishers and 6 gnome hunters. And of the dwarfs, it's the dwarf Captain Kragnair, 6 dwarf hammerers and 6 dwarf guardians. So yeah, so they're all kind of put into these little envelopes like this. And yeah, so what they do is, when it is manufactured on the sprue, these are resin miniatures, by the way, what Enviro Games do is they remove everything from those sprues, put them into these compostable bags, and then the leftover they've got from the sprue that's been removed goes directly back into production. So there's no wasted materials or anything like that. Anything that is used for the production of the miniatures, and we'll have a look at them in a minute because they look very, very good. Anything used for that production that is waste goes straight back. It all goes back into the resin mix and straight back into making more models. So no waste whatsoever. And obviously you can see from the box, these envelopes and that kind of thing, they are all kind of recyclable and that kind of thing. So the box here actually, so it is in a cardboard box, but it is very sturdy. It isn't in any way, it still feels premium, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it doesn't feel just like a cardboard box. So that's cool, very nice. Let's take a brief look at the cards. So obviously I haven't played this game yet, so I don't know anything about it, but let's actually get these sorted into their factions. So let's have a look at the dwarfs first. Captain Kragnair. So there's abilities, keywords for us to associate with other things in the game. The name of their equipment, the type that they are, range, damage and properties. So it's got some properties there. So it's got inaccurate and deadly, 2 of the properties for the Flintock Thunderer. So yeah, it's going to have like a range of keywords for us to assess and go through. We've got Dwarf Guardians and Dwarf Hammerers. So yeah, melee and ranged. So that's cool. And then for the gnomes, Knones, if you like, Alto Mage Zizka. Spells, it's got on there, chain lighting, bark skin and imbue projectiles. Hunters, ranged, and skirmishers, melee. Very cool. Okay, so let's have a little dig through some of the rulebook. We'll do the miniatures last. Okay, Novus Mallum. So the hobby of miniatures wargaming lets you play engaging, interactive, battlefield-based fantasy scenarios using a collection of scale miniatures, otherwise referred to as models. And it goes through the starter rules and that kind of thing for this game. So we get the world of Novus Mallum. I'll do a separate video maybe covering this kind of stuff, perhaps in the review. The world of Novus Mallum, kind of the setting, about that great shroud and that kind of thing. The dwarves, the gnomes, core concepts. So d6 dice, asked to roll a d3 and a d6, so anyone who plays any kind of Warhammer will know what that means. Rounding up, so you always round up when you do a d3 or a d6. Plus and minus modifiers, we know that. Rerolls, so if you fail a result and you have an ability to re-roll it, if you do so, you always take the re-roll result. Roll-offs, so that's, yeah, we know that. Measurements in inches. Always measure to and from the closest point of a model's base and to/from the center of any objective. Okay, attacker and defender, allied and enemy, range, line of sight actually, let's have a look. Determined by what can be seen through the model's eyes. The player may need to place themselves at eye height with the model to determine this. And a model can be said to have line of sight if it can see any part of the target model's body, excluding weapons or other pieces of equipment. So in some games, line of sight can be either base to base. So if any part of one base can see any part of another base, then it's in line of sight. But this is literally on the eyesight. Yeah, it's if that model can literally see any part of the opponent's body. So very good. Wound rolls, save rolls, this is all part of the mechanic in combat. Bunch of tokens which we'll look at in a second. Actually, so let's have a look at the tokens actually, because I've seen images of these. So again, no plastic tokens. So we get, let's have a look. So they're all single-sided. Okay, so we get 8 numbered tokens. 8 of these spear tokens, 2 hammers, 2 what looks like spell books, and 1 which is a spear and a hammer and a spell book. So something between kind of ranged and spells maybe. Okay, so that's the tokens. Okay, so it goes through a little bit about the information. So we've got formations. At the start of the game, each warband is divided into a maximum of 4 formations, which contain between 3 and 8 models. A formation can comprise of any combination of models. So I guess the closest thing that I can think of to that offhand is maybe in Warcry, when in Warcry you set into 3 separate groups, set your models into 3 separate groups. In there it is hammer, dagger and shields. I'm assuming that this is the same sort of thing. Formation coherency. Models must finish any movement phase within 1 inch of the next closest model. All right, okay, so your four groups, I mean, individually those groups need to stick together. That's interesting. Ignore vertical distance when working out formation coherency. Does not apply once a formation becomes engaged. Okay, so the unit cards it's got on there, we've already had a look at those. Statistics, otherwise referred to as stats. So movement stats, defense, save, that's the minimum roll required for a model to pass a save roll. And wounds, the number of failed save rolls a model can suffer before being removed from play. I have to say this is all laid out pretty nicely actually. Very, very clear rules here, to be honest. This is, yeah, it seems pretty light and pretty basic, but lots of stuff here. Equipment. This section of the unit card details the weapons possessed by each model and their characteristics. So the type, so again, we've got that on here. So it's type, range, damage, and properties. And properties is additional features possessed by the equipment. The keywords are referenced by other rules and can grant special bonuses or penalties to miniatures depending on the situation. It's got a list of equipment properties. So for example, accurate. Wound rolls made against an obscured enemy from formation are not subjected to the -1 modification. So that's a good, yeah, that's a very good example there. So if you're obscured, you get a -1, but if you've got the accurate property, it doesn't count. Let's have a look at another one. So we've got reach. An attacking model may choose to be included in a clash, even if not in base contact with an enemy model, providing it is in base contact with an ally who is. All right, so you can almost chain by using the reach property. Very good. Okay, abilities. Every unit card lists a distinctive ability which can enhance the model's action. So detailed on the card, not in the book. So there's a hero keyword. They are arguably the most powerful models available to your warband. They follow a formation of the player's choosing in coherency. And they swap formations mid-battle. Okay. So getting started, what do you need? So you need 2 players, a tape measure or rule marked in inches, 1 or more 6-sided dice, a flat playing area. We recommend a minimum space of 36 inches, and a set of scale terrain. Understandably, not everyone has access to a set of wargaming terrain. Imagination, creativity, and some common household objects can be equally as effective. Yeah, very good, very good. Scenarios. So there are scenarios in this book, which we'll look at in a second. Terrain, obviously, we all know what that is. Standard deployment. After the playing area, terrain, and any objectives have been set up, deployment of models to the playing area can begin. The standard deployment sequence is, okay, so just very quickly before we get into that, let's look at one of the scenarios. Let's look at scenario 1. So it's set up very basically, a large area. So there's no terrain that can be seen on here. Oh, but there is some in later scenarios. All right, let's go for a separate in a minute. Okay, let battle commence. During the game, players will complete 1 or more scenarios. A standard Novus Mallum scenario lasts 6 rounds, and each round comprises 6 phases. Phases are completed 1 at a time. Once all 6 have been resolved, a new round begins. Okay, so first phase is the command phase. Priority order is determined. The priority order is maintained for the entire round, so think ahead and choose wisely. Priority tokens, so that is these number tokens, 1 to 8. They're drawn blind from a container, like drawing names from a hat. If no container is available, flip them on their front. Okay. The combat priority token determines who makes key decisions in the combat phase. Determining priority order. Draw and assign tokens. So that is for the first one. So going back to the deployment. So first of all, you roll off. Highest roller decides who deploys first. Then you go through your deploying formations. Place one formation at a time wholly within your deployment zone. Deploying heroes. Players then take turns to deploy their heroes in coherency with the formation they wish to follow initially. And let battle commence, and you carry on. That's just what we've been through the first phase of that. The next one is the movement phase. Next is magic. So if you've got any magic, I'm assuming heroes to start with, then they go with that phase. Then you're on to shooting. Then you're on to the combat, which I'm assuming is the melee. And then a morale phase. I'm assuming that is in the same way as if you lose a certain amount of numbers, others may either run away or return. Okay, so scenario 1. Right, a Dwarven unit undertaking a regular patrol from their satellite position in Frondeur noticed a toppled, unattended trade caravan adjacent to a nearby stream. On inspection, the caravan looked to have been ransacked in an unusual way. Some select items had been hastily removed, but many of the expensive goods remained. Neither the traders nor the horses which were assumed to have been pulling the caravan could be seen, but signs of a recent struggle were evident. While preparing to transport the caravan back to the local town, a rustling in the adjacent tree line was heard, and a group of unusual-looking creatures appeared. Armed with bows, spears and axes, they began to approach the caravan. The dwarves, initially startled, quickly gathered themselves in anticipation for an attack. So we've got this large area in blue here, which is where the dwarves deploy. So primary objective in scoring: protect the crates. Dwarves score points for each crate held at the end of the game. Steal the supplies. Gnomes score a point for each crate they held at the end of the game. Additionally, if a gnome model is in base contact with an objective, the gnome player may move this objective up to 6 inches in any direction at the end of the movement phase, providing it stays in base contact with a model from the same formation. At the end of the first round, the value of each crate is determined by a D3 roll. At the end of the game, a crate is considered held by a warband with the most models within adjacency of 3 inch. Both warbands have an equal number of adjacent models. Roll off to decide the holder. Okay. Now, secondary objective is the first warband to completely wipe out an enemy formation secures an additional point. Okay, pretty straightforward. So if you're going to buy that, maybe you don't want to go through all of the different scenarios. I'm going to quickly run through scenario 2 if you want to see it. If not, just skip ahead a few minutes. Lost in the Glen. Okay, so this is very different. So you can see from scenario 1, have kind of a waterway through here along with, you know, kind of a path there. This is for kind of visual purpose, if you know what I mean, I believe. And yeah, so this blue area here is where the dwarves set up, and then the green areas here is where the gnomes set up. There is a twist. Watery torrent. At the start of round 3, roll a dice for each objective in the stream. Okay. On a 4+, each objective moves 6 inches downstream away from the road. Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Not everyone's going to have any kind of a battle mat or anything like that that's got a stream in it, but just use something. Either use something that you can denote it with, or perhaps even just skip the twist if it's going to be too difficult. Lost in the Glen. Fresh from a fiery first encounter, the dwarves, having lost sight of their unfamiliar foe, retreated to Frondeur in search of the absent traders. The gnomes, growing more comfortable in their bright and vibrant surroundings, set out to explore more of the new land before them. Okay, so more information here. We have 3 objectives in the place of horses. No doubt the horses that fled from the previous objective. We have deployments on each corner of the map. So dwarves and gnomes. Twist wild beasts. At the start of round 4, roll a dice for each captured horse. On a 5-up, they escape their captors and immediately move 6 inches, direction decided by the opposing player. Okay, cool. So this is all about capturing the horses. And then there are more scenarios in here. That's an interesting kind of deployment from right around the edges of the map, kind of pressing in on the gnome area. So dwarves, gnome. That is morning mist. Then we have scenario 4, treasure in the cairns. I assume you have to dig for the gold. And finally, gnome stronghold. Gnome set up on the entire 1/2 of the map. And dwarves kind of encroach in from here. And that's it. That's it for the rule book. And it's nice, you know, it's not overflowing with rules or anything like that. It is pretty straightforward. So on your first game, you're probably going to be up and running and actually playing within an hour or so, which is brilliant, to be fair. Very nice. Okay, so let's take a look at some models. Okay, so we've got this package here, H1. Let's take a look. What we have. Okay, so this appears to be the heroes. So we have 2 bases. One appears to be maybe 25, the other one 32 millimeters. There you go, that's a better view. Yeah, so very nicely detailed. Okay, right, so let's have a look. First of all, Alto Mage Zizka. Really, really very, very cool. And you can see that where they've clipped it from the sprue, they've actually done a very, very good job. So normally, one of the reasons why, you know, when I'm buying models on eBay or things like that, really, I always buy on sprue because I worry about, you know, other people's, you know, how good they are at clipping from the sprue, how good they are at cleaning out models. But you can see from here, I've not had to do anything with this. And it really does look fantastic. Excellent, excellent stuff. And we'll have a look at Captain Crag now. So he's bigger model, bigger base, 32mm, I believe. And again, really epic detail. Very, very good. Very easy to put together. With this model particularly, things like gluing on the shield with the cape at the back and all that, no problems whatsoever. Well, no problems whatsoever. So yeah, very, very simple and straightforward. Right, so that's the unboxing for Novus Mallum. Very impressed, very, very impressed at the quality of the models, and very, very impressed at the ease of kind of reading the rulebook. Very, very straightforward. Now, in terms of the kind of forward movement of this game, I know that there's 3 more factions planned. There are expansions coming up that are going to increase on this set, so there'll be cavalry units, ways to expand these factions and that kind of thing. So this is very much just the start of a much wider project, and I'm really happy to be in right from the off as well. I'm really looking forward to getting this to the table, getting a few games under my belt and telling you all what I think of it. So the review is probably 2 weeks out, so you've got that amount of time to give me some feedback on what you like from this, anything further you'd want to see. There will be another video with a much, much more detailed look at all the models and that kind of thing. So thanks for watching, guys, much appreciated. I will see you all later. Don't forget to subscribe and all that kind of stuff to see more Novus Mallum very soon. Take care.